So the Ten Commandments, before we start, I just want to point out this little Ten Commandments was my daddy's. It was on his dresser when he was a child. It's a very, very sacred little item there. So the Ten Commandments. So if you're of my generation, then the instant vision that you have is Charlton Heston with his freshly sprayed gray hair blowing in the breeze, standing on a mountainside, holding two tablets that are engraved with rules that will control our behavior. That was the image I was raised on. I was a nice Jewish girl, and that was Moses, and that was true. And even though I didn't have a clue as to what the word covet might actually mean, I knew I wasn't supposed to. In some ways, the Ten Commandments have become a little archaic and regularly ignored in our daily lives by many people until it becomes an issue of a discussion of should they be in a public building's lobby or not. Then there's a big interest in them. So when I attended One Spirit Interfaith Seminary, one of our books that we studied was this book by Leonard Felder called The 10 Challenges. It's fantastic. And that's what we're kind of building from this week and the 27th. We're going to look at how he looks at them and then expand on that a little bit more. And his mentor, when he was studying, his mentor referenced the 10 Commandments as the 10 hardest things we try to do in life. So the original Hebrew term for the 10 Commandments is Aseret Hadibrot, which translates as the 10 words or the 10 things. And Leonard Felder preferred to use the word challenge because it implies a more voluntary approach. He references both Jesus and Muhammad as spiritual leaders who work with these challenges as precepts, guides, and ways to live better. And there are additions and amendments, of course, but the outcome is always the same. We will be better people in our lives when we incorporate these challenges into our lives. And when we make them less commandments and more invitations, there's less of a sting of dogma and obligation attached, which are the two biggies that when I talk to people about Spirit Stone and they say, well, is it a church? I'm like, what do you fear most? Dogma, obligation. Those are the two biggies. So we're going to take a jaunt through the first 5 today, and then we'll do the next 5 on the 27th. And I'll try to go as speedily as I can because otherwise we'll be here all day. So the commandment is, I am the one who is and always will be your God who brought you out of enslavement, or I am the one who is and always will be your God who can bring you out of a narrow way of seeing things, which I like. And then the challenge, the way Felder refers to the challenge is discovering that still small voice within. So I've shared before that when I was young, God was my buddy, God was my pal, and we would chat on a regular basis. And then there was a time that God became my enemy, and I would yell at him on a regular basis. And then God became my teacher, and I would ask questions on a regular basis. And now God is within me, and we commune on a moment-to-moment basis. So this evolution of God from man in the clouds to Energizer Bunny batteries inside me is what some people refer to as spiritual maturity. And it's liberating to recognize that God doesn't belong to anyone. It is within everyone. And so in this book, the question that's put forth is whether or not we choose to believe and want to be partners with Spirit. And the good news is that whether we choose to or not choose to, Spirit's going to still do its thing. And that's okay. That's totally okay. It's our choice to stop and listen for and listen to the still small voice. And the listening is what expands our way of seeing things, our way of being, our way of living, and how we see each other and want to be in the world. And the unlimiting potential opened up by changing that wording frees us from idol worship bowing to something above looking down, to connecting with something within that guides and loves and supports. And also, I think this adjustment from enslavement to narrow way of seeing is brilliant. Because what is enslavement but a narrow way of seeing? So I think that's great. Yes? Awesome. All right, we're in. Okay. My word cloud. I'm really excited about it. So the commandment is, you shall not worship false idols or images. And this is where Felder starts really gearing it up and going someplace. The challenge is breaking free of unfulfilling paths and habits. Habits becoming our idols. The mystic storyteller, his name is Ted Falcon from Seattle, he explains idolatry this way, and I love this. The moments when we forget who we really are, when we start giving up our power to a guru or an ideology, a stressful job that begins to define us, or an unhealthy habit we think we can't live without. Even if we no longer build or worship physical idols like in ancient times, we have modern-day addictions and pressures that cause us to forget that our purpose here is to be a vehicle for divine energies. So to me, this challenge was related to our resistance to facing and releasing what blocks our clarity and our wholeness. And in other aspects, it's about what we put in front of us so that we can avoid facing those things. So it's a pretty large concept to deal with, and I was sitting there thinking, well, this is like 3 more talks that I could just take from this. So we'll go the best we can. And of course, I'm never offering any answers. I'm with you on this journey. I'm figuring stuff out. So just wanted to clarify in case there was any question. So there's a piece of this I really wanted to delve into, and it's the idea of worship versus trust. Because there's a big difference for me. When we come in this space in the morning and we pick up a stone, we're participating in a ritual. We are not, however, worshiping the stone. We're moving through a healing process. And for me personally, I am a tangible ritual person. I mean, we could just as easily gather together, bring to mind something we want to let go of, take a deep breath and release it on the exhale. That's perfectly acceptable. I like to touch things. I'm big on actual physical release and touching things. And so I like that hands-on earth connected experience of saying, this is happening. And so I surrender the baggage to the stone and I set the stone in the water. And it's a ritual because of our trust in the process of the ritual. Not because we believe that the rock or the water is God. And that the rock and the water is taking something from us. Do you see where I'm going with this? All right. So, pulling from somebody that I know someone in this room personally loves deeply, Kaleem. This is something that Emma Curtis Hopkins, who is known as the teacher of teachers in New Thought, she wrote this in her book, and I think it's really powerful, so I want to share it with you incomplete. If you have, for instance, set your mind to heal heart disease and are sure that there must be a remedy, keeping firm to that idea and seeking for the healing of heart disease, your mind will get firmer and firmer until one day it feels a quickening certainty. At that moment, you may be handling clover leaves. You give some clover leaves to the patient and the patient gets well. Then you insist that the clover leaves made him well and cured him but it wasn't the clover leaves, it was the quality of your mind and your thinking. So while you keep your mind and heart intent upon healing heart disease, the clover leaves will obey the stream of healing energy that quiver forth from your soul. When you have withdrawn your thoughts or the influence of your mighty confidence has passed into another realm, the clover leaves will no longer cure. It's Dumbo and the magic feather. You've all seen Dumbo? Okay. As long as he believed the magic feather worked, he flew. Until one day he lost the magic feather. And then he figured out that he could fly. And he didn't need it anymore. It was the quality of his thoughts. So it's not the stones. It's our consciousness that's doing the work. The stones are a beautiful representation. So for clarity, for me, there is a difference between habit and ritual, even if it's just a semantic one. A ritual to me is a sacred experience that looks like a task. And a habit is something that we cannot stop doing for some reason, and in order to stop, we require some intervention. When our habits become our God, that gets in the way of living our life. And that's the moment we get to examine. However, we examine it without judgment, with love. All right. I love this one. The cartoon reads for the recording, "Are you coming to bed? I can't. This is important." What's important? Someone is wrong on the internet. The commandment is, you shall not take God's name in vain. And the challenge is learning to control anger, insecurity, and self-righteousness. Holy hot dogs, this is a big one for me. I never knew how self-righteous I could be until I discovered Facebook. But I love how these two themes work together. Because it's not just about cursing or using a sacred word in a bad way. For those of you who know me, I'm a big fan of cursing. I think it's lovely. And I'm not tied to curse words being hurtful as I am so much tied to other words that actually are hurtful. So for me, this is about the language we use in the moments when we're not really feeling our holiness fully, or when we are absolutely, positively, beyond a shadow of doubt, sure that we are right. So Felder shares a quote from Rabbi Mordecai Finley. And he says, "If you want to find out how well you are living up to your spiritual values and higher principles, pay close attention to how you behave in the middle of an argument or a tense moment involving someone you live with, work with, or are in love with." So this is a large concept. We're learning that God's name is your name, my name, our perceived enemy's name, our best friend's name. You get the idea. Part of the challenge, as Felder writes, is maintaining awareness of the other person's humanity. It's namaste. So when we are discussing these undiscussable topics on Facebook, for myself, I noticed that the ultimate challenge is to not have to be right all the time, even if I feel like I am. And to catch myself and take a deep breath before I hit post, that post button. Especially right now. Lessons have been learned in the last couple weeks that have changed my life. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful because it's really opened my eyes. And this challenge also deals with expressions that we use unconsciously, like I swear, or I swear to God, or I swear I will. And so whatever comes after that, I swear, whether it's positive or negative, it's a powerful statement. It's an affirmation. And words do have power. And I can always tell when I have said or typed or emailed or expressed something that's not like me, that isn't me, because I get a visceral, full body reaction and go, oh, that was not me. So this is a good one, and if I was working any of the challenges more than others, I'm working this one right now. I'm not done with this one yet. Oh, yes, I am. I got all excited. So the commandment is, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And the challenge is the struggle to unhook from your everyday pressures and connect with something profoundly joyful. Gosh, to have a personal Shabbat. Oh, what a gift. And it should be easy, right? I mean, we're all grateful for technology and how technology helps us and supports us and guides us. And yet I hear all the time about people saying, man, I'm taking a technology break. You know, this weekend, no technology. And so for me, it's a really interesting challenge because I do embrace my addiction to technology. I need to know. I need to know. I don't like to not know. When I miss a day, I'm like, what did I miss? I need to know. When Heather and I went to the Grand Canyon, we went in the Grand Canyon for 15 days on the Colorado River, and it was a no technology zone. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to fall asleep without playing solitaire on my phone? You know, how am I going to exist? And the surprising thing was after 15 days when we came off the river, I picked up my phone and it felt foreign in my hand. Like it literally was like, this doesn't fit. How do you use this? What do I couldn't remember how to check my email. Like 15 days. It was just 15 days. Of course, it was 15 days in God's magnificence, but it was enough to take my brain and go, boop, little switch. And I was like, wow, interesting. So another perspective on this is, with the technology. So I do recommend technology breaks. I'm working on that. I'm also working this challenge. So I'm working 2 challenges. Okay. So, but another perspective on this challenge is this, and Heather and I were just talking about this the other day. So my employment changed because where I was working was not healthy for who I was. And when my employment changed, I got really excited because I was going to be having Minister Fridays. I'm like, yay, Minister Fridays. And then I got offered like a 1-hour job in the morning from 9 to 10. And I'm like, it's Minister Friday. Well, it's income. It's Minister Friday, it's income. All right, 1 hour. That's all I'm going to give you. 1 hour. And then I started noticing, and imagine my surprise, at how quickly Minister Fridays can become Errand Fridays. Suddenly it's like, oh, right, I need to pick up that. Oh, I need to do that. Oh, I got this to do and that to do. And there goes my Shabbat. Like the dandelion that you blow into, just poof, gone. And so then I think to myself, all right, when I'm frustrated about this, what's going on? What's really going on? And so the question for me is twofold. How does it happen that we back burner our Shabbat? That we back burner our well-filling experience? Or how can we integrate the Minister Friday experience into Errand Friday? We're going to be closing today with the song Brother Lawrence, which is the whole idea that whenever you're doing anything, you're praying. Whenever we're doing anything, it's holy. So how do I do that? Well, I'll tell you how, because I actually have an answer to this one. And it's release resentment. Release resentment. If I have a thing about the word errand, that's mine to own, what I think about the word errand. On Friday, I took the hoodies down to Downtown Soup Kitchen. Was that an errand? Or was I being a minister? It was Minister Friday. I was taking something to the Downtown Soup Kitchen. So it's reframing. It's reframing and reframing. And at the same time, making sure that the well is refilling. So it's like layered. It's really cool. And so Felder has some really great suggestions in his book about some Shabbat ideas, one of which is my favorite, sacred napping. Find time to do some sacred napping. And he also talks about carrying that internal Shabbat experience when we do have a moment where we can go within, get quiet, refill, and then carry that into the craziness of the chaos of your week. So that in the midst of the chaos, like Emerson says, in the midst of the city, finding the mountaintop. All right. Number 5, everybody take a deep breath. The commandment, honor your father and your mother, and the challenge, how do you honor a parent when there's tension between you? And can I tell you how long it took me to find genderless parents? So there's no question that this can be a difficult one for some folks. For many years, my mom and I could not find a way to understand each other. We loved each other. It just never really looked or felt like what we wanted it to look and feel like. And there was always these like missed opportunities and cross communication, and it was really difficult. And it doesn't matter why it was happening, and it was hard, and it bothered both of us, and it hurt both of us. And I'm really grateful to be able to say that that's changed, that we have now found a way to connect to each other. And everybody thank Heather, because thank you, Heather. I'm pretty sure it was all about her. So for anyone who struggles with this concept or with this challenge, Felder has great perspectives and suggestions about moving to a better place in it. And one of those suggestions, one of those ideas that he puts forth, is to remember that our parents were, and sometimes still are, working with the only tools that they have in their toolbox. And those tools came from their parents and the parents before them. The tools are passed down. And unless the tools are honed and changed and updated and cleaned off, those same tools just get passed on. And they get adopted or adapted to whatever works in that moment, and then we get them. And I can't speak for anyone but myself, but have any of you had the experience where you start to say something and, oh my God, I just said something that my mother once said, or my father once said. Oh, God, it's like oh. Well, if it's a negative thing, it's really horrifying. If it's a beautiful thing, then great. But if it's one of those things where you're like, I'm cold, put a coat on. Oh my God, my mother used to always say that. Holy mackerel. It's their influence. It exists. It's there, whether we want it to or not. And it's up to us to take the tools that we're given and say, well, do these tools work for me? And even if we don't have children, we have furry ones. You know, I listen to how I talk to my dog. And it's like, oh, wow, sorry about that. And so we adapt. And another piece of this one is also coming to a reconciliation with a parent that we may not be able to directly communicate with, whether they are no longer on the planet, or it's their living situation, or a health condition, whatever reason, there's an inability to connect and to heal whatever needs to be healed. And that closure is a really necessary part of our lives as we move forward. And not being able to have a tangible physical closure can sometimes be challenging. And so there are many rituals, of course, to process that. One of them we did at seminary at a retreat. We spent all day in silence, and then we gathered together, and in silence we were guided. Our instructors weren't silent. They guided us to write 4 letters to our mom, to our dad, to ourself, and to God. And it was fascinating. There were 87 students in the room, and the experiences were 87 different experiences. Some were crying, some were on the floor sobbing, some were joyful, some were very introspective. But it was that idea of actually saying what you want to say. And then we had a beautiful burning bowl and let them loose. So there are ways to do it. He talks about different ways to do it. And it's interesting because at the time I was reading this in seminary, I was still struggling with my relationship with my mom. And I can see in my notes where I was like, no, you're wrong. I'm right. You know. And now looking back, it's like, yeah, which challenge was that? So there they are, the first 5. Now, the question that we're going to ask today and continue pondering as we do the 27th is, do we need rules to be good people? And in my philosophy class, In my philosophy class right now, the chapter in the book we're reading talks about, would people behave differently if God was proven to exist? If there was actual proof God exists, would anyone change their behavior? And the majority of people asked and discussed with said no. Wouldn't make a difference. Those who were doing things, those who were committing evil actions would continue. And those who were being good would continue. There might be a few people who would go, maybe I should think twice. However, no great radical changes. So if belief or non-belief in God doesn't make a difference, why would 10 rules make a difference? However, when we look at the rules, the commandments, as challenges, holy challenges, now we're inviting people to participate in something of a spiritual experiment, like Dean was talking about. Approach them like an experiment. See what happens if you unhook for a weekend. See what happens if instead of saying, I'm going to write back to that person, I'm going to tell them how right I am, instead of that, maybe just going, I'm going to let them be. I'm going to let them believe what they believe because I'm allowed to believe what I believe. And I think the results of this experience are going to be a better and happier and more fulfilled life for all of us. And I'm going to close the talk with these words from the Buddha. However many holy words you read, however many you speak, what good will they do if you do not act upon them? So let's pray. Oh, taking a deep breath and absorbing all that just took place. Recognizing that this path in life is an adventure and a journey. And that none of us walk this path or this journey alone. Not only are we with each other, we have a spiritual guidance support system that is within us, that is encouraging us, because it's having its life through us and as us. We have this amazing co-creative experience taking place all the time. And the best part of that experience is that we have permission to choose again and again and again. The beautiful thing about the 10 challenges is that they are challenges, they are invitations. Invitations to change, to grow, to expand, to live, to forgive, and to forgive again. So holding that space and blessing that truth, knowing that spirit is always the only activity going on, no matter what that activity looks like, no matter what the appearance of that activity is, it's God happening. And it's always, always conspiring for our good. So I hold in prayer those who reached out to me during this past week. One of my beloved sisters in spirit in New York, I hold her in that place of protection and comfort and safety. All those who reached out with health concerns and financial concerns and relationship concerns, these are all valid concerns, and yet God is taking care of it right now, even when it looks different than what we want it to look like. It's unfolding as it needs to unfold. It's trusting in that. Prayer may not actually change an outer condition. What it does change is how we are in that condition, how we move through it, how we experience it, how we feel in it and about it. And so right now, I affirm that regardless of what any appearance is happening, I hold truth and light and love and spirit and possibility compassion, forgiveness, and bliss as what is true in my life, in the life of everyone here, and in the life of everyone who is connecting in consciousness and those who are not. I'm grateful for each and every experience that opens my heart and mind and eyes. And I'm grateful for each and every person here who brings forth whatever it is they need to release into that stone and letting it go. To go have a beautiful day, free and light, and connecting in with that magnificence that is spirit. And so I call it good. I call it grateful. I call it done. Ashe, and so it is. Amen. Ashe.